Hey everyone, it's Mike Hughes from Lord of Minis at Lord of Minis on Instagram. Today we're going to go over color theory as it applies to color schemes, as it applies to non-metallic metal, how it applies to you. It's color theory inception. Many of you don't know that I have a fine art degree and taught at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee before launching into my advertising career. I spent a year with color theory and will distill a small portion of it down to you in under 30 minutes. Here is some of my miniature painting work. You'll see that I apply color theory overall on my pieces, meaning breaking down analogous or triadic color schemes across sections of the model. However, you can also break it down into color schemes within your non-metallic metal practice. I'm going to whiteboard this today for you all so you can see just how awful my penmanship is using a digital pencil. After the whiteboard presentation, I'll do a live painting demo in Adobe Fresco over the top of a model so you can see the theory applied in real time. This is Sir Isaac Newton's color wheel, as originally conceived in 1704. Blah, 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 blah. History lesson over. See, I saved you at least 2,000 in tuition. Here is the color wheel we all know and love, and my penmanship we all love or hate. Color can be broken down into a couple of general segments. Value, or luminance, if you are a film and video person, is the reference to brightness in contrast. Chroma is a measurement of how intense the colors are. We commonly refer to this as saturation. Hue is commonly known as color in color families. And then there are color schemes, which artists use to create balance and harmony within their work. Or they can use it to break the harmony, which can be useful to create tension in work. The complementary color scheme is any hue which is opposite each other on the color wheel. This is comprised of a primary and secondary color. One of the most common complementary color schemes is red and blue, which if you put next to one another becomes quite contrasty. You can also see purple and green across from one another is also a nice complementary color scheme. Second color scheme is called the analogous color scheme, which are colors that sit adjacent to one another on the color wheel. An analogous color scheme is cool in its own, but it can get slightly monotonous. So oftentimes there is a color that's pulled in across from the analogous color scheme. And in fancy terms, we would call this an accented analogous color scheme. The third on our list here is the triadic color scheme. It's one of the most commonly used color schemes. This scheme is comprised of three colors that sit equidistant from each other on the color wheel. This scheme brings a level of contrast and harmony to our paintings. This is actually what we're going to be focused on today. It's going to be the triadic color scheme within the non-metallic metal practice. It's a scheme that I see most painters use because you can apply it to the overall model, meaning you can do armor red and cloth blue and have an accent of green as maybe an OSL. I see this quite a lot. It helps break up the model. You can also do that within the context of the non-metallic metal. So it's triadic color scheme within a triadic color scheme. The fourth color scheme is the tetradic color scheme, which consists of two pairs of complementary colors, which are balanced across the color wheel. The one thing that sets this scheme apart from the others is that usually one of the four colors needs to be dominant, or we risk the mishmash of colors that won't balance out or create enough contrast. So what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to use Adobe Fresco, and I imported a photo I took of a model. It's from Hera Models. If you want to go look up their models, they're fantastic. I put the photo in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a triadic color scheme as a non-metallic metal over the shoulder armor. You can see this particular shoulder armor, it's a bit ambiguous as to what that might be. That could be bone, that could be metal, could be painted, it could look painted with the paint worn off, but for today we're going to try a triadic non-metallic metal approach. I'm going to sort of let this play out. I'm not going to do a lot of talking. I just feel like it's important to see the drawing in real time rather than it being sped up, so you can kind of take in where I'm grabbing these colors from and where they're being applied. Now, in the end, it's going to look like metal, but it's a drawing over the top of an image. So you'll be able to see the color scheme at the end of this. However, when we actually go and apply it to the model, it's going to look quite a bit more realistic in terms of the non-metallic metal looking like real metal. You're going to see the scheme here is going to be a purple scheme. The colors for the scheme are going to be purple, green, and we're going to bring in sort of this salmon-like red color. And so that's going to be our triadic color scheme for today. So you can see this sort of pinkish color being applied in the shadow areas. This is meant for an OSL. OSL just stands for object source lighting. So think of it as it's an object emitting a light, and that light can have a certain intensity. It can be in the shape of like a spot sort of light. It can be an omni light or something like that, just in terms of brightness. So an object could be the moon casting light down onto the model from above. It could be a fire pit from 10 feet away below. It could be a bunch of things. Toxic ooze, which could be beneath them. You can see I'm just adding a little bit of the highlights here, trying to give it a little bit more contrast. So we have our metal painted here in the scheme that we want, this triadic color scheme. And, you know, in the end, we'll build in a lot more contrast than this, and they'll be quite a lot more subtle on the miniature than this. We have a object source lighting from the top down, and that could be really anything bright, any sort of light coming top down from the right top down. And then we have an OSL coming from below, which is casting that sort of reddish color from below. So this is our triad color scheme right here. One side, I kind of broke it down a little bit for you here. There's a dark and a light. It's purple, green, and that reddish color. I obviously used different values to create this piece. So the one thing that I would do is I probably would apply it to the helmet and some of the other armor. And yeah, that's it. There you go. That's the color scheme for today. It looks pretty good. The challenge would now be, how do I break down the rest of the figure if the color scheme is that? Because that's a pretty complex color scheme just for armor alone. I might make that a lot more subtle, quite a lot more subtle. And then make something else pop out more. Maybe his helmet pops out a little bit more. Maybe the spikes on his back pop out a little bit more. So this is a great exercise to go through to determine what kind of color schemes you want to apply to your miniature. I would suggest getting a hold of this Adobe Fresco or something similar and trying out color schemes for yourself. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out this video on color theory as it applies to non-metallic metal. I'll see you all next time.